Hey, welcome to the world premiere of the Indie Library. My name is Sean Harbert. I will be your librarian, and on this channel, we are going to debut indie authors. I fall into that category. Indie authors. Why indie authors, you ask? Why, that's a wonderful question. I'm glad you asked. Indie authors. Now, the difference between an indie author and a corporate author. Corporate authors are authors that are tied to some really large corporation, publishing houses. They're huge. They have their own marketing and everything like this. Not to take away from some of these indie authors, because some of the corporate authors, are very talented. Jeffrey Archer, Lee Child, Stephen King. The list goes on and on and on. Some of these guys are really talented, but they have to be. And the reason they have to be is because it's their job. Just like you and I, they have bills to pay. What happens if they're not good at their job? They're replaced by somebody who is, and they're crying in their Hello Kitty lunchbox in the parking lot. They have to be good at what they do. Now, indie authors, totally different story. Here's the story with indie authors. With indie authors, in their writing is not paying their bills, I assure you. Indie authors work Monday through Friday or whatever their hours are, just like you and I. Why? Because they've got bills to pay too. And at the evening, they go home and they write. They write because that's what they're passionate about. The old phrase, shop local, I like to alter that a little bit. Read local. Indie authors, if you're going to buy a book from an indie author who's passionate about writing. And on this channel, I'm going to premiere a few different indie authors. I'll read you a little bit at the beginning of their book. I'm not going to read a whole bunch of it because I don't want to monetize their work. That's their job, not mine. Now, as an independent author myself, I am going to read you some of my book. I can monetize my own book a little bit more than I can monetize those of other indie authors. This book right here, the one that I've written, my most recent published work, is called Maggie's Wine and Spirits. We've done multiple book signings on it at bookstores. We have a hard time keeping it in stock up here on the shelf right behind me, as a matter of fact. And so we're going to read a little bit of that to you. What my goal is to get you hooked on reading and to get you interested in this book. Here we go. I can get the pages turned. Hello, my name is Isaac Bishop, and I'm currently in ICU at Massachusetts General Hospital. According to my chart, I have 2 broken ribs, a broken nose, 3 lacerations, bringing my total stitch count to 27. I also have a knot on my head the Marines can plant a flag on. Can you say concussion for the win? This is the end result when you get in a fight with a demon. Of course, I did not tell the hospital that. I told them I got in a bar fight over a girl. Well, where's the girl? The nurse asked with a shy grin as she looked around my empty room. Well, obviously I didn't win, I replied. The statement wasn't a total lie. There are a few elements of truth to it. You see, I manage a bar filled with the dead. I employ several mythological creatures who help me run the place. A little much for you? How about I take you back to the beginning? The doctors tell me they want to keep me here for a few days anyway. I am getting tired of watching reruns of Gilligan's Island, so story time it is. It was December 21st, just a few days before Christmas. I was planning on my usual Christmas tradition. I would treat myself to a new console game. It was Death Before Dishonor, a first-person shooter game. The movie was lame, but the game was getting good reviews, and I wanted to check it out. Besides, I went to high school with the clerk. He said he could score me an early release. I really don't have much family to speak of. My mother died of cancer when I was just a teenager. My father is still alive, if you can call it that. He is a resident of a care. He is a resident in a resident care facility fighting late-stage Alzheimer's. He has no idea where he is, or where he's at, or who I am. I try to get over there to see him at least twice a week. It's difficult to see him like that, though, and he doesn't recognize me anyway. It feels like he already died and nobody has bothered to tell him yet. I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment with my roommate, Steve. Now, I can count the number of times I have seen Steve weed-free on one hand. He says he has a medical marijuana card. If I know Steve, he may have several of them. He is a website designer and rarely wears anything other than board shorts and a dirty t-shirt. He is not the first person I've ever met that smokes pot all day and watches porn. The difference is Steve gets paid for it. Imagine if the dude from The Big Lebowski and Charles Manson were to have a baby. That would be my roomie Steve. He is so far from dark and dangerous. He just looks like a mix between the two, that's all. Where was I? I got a little sidetracked here. Hold on, let me back read this real quick. Okay, Christmas. My parents, mom died of cancer and dad is dead from the neck up. So I normally just take full advantage of the extra day off and chill out with my Xbox and a 6-pack of Red Bulls. This Christmas would be life-altering. Christmas fell on a Monday this year, so I would be getting a 3-day weekend. I worked at this place called the Thunderbird Bar and Grill. That's right, I said worked, as in past tense. You already know what's coming. I got fired on Thursday before the holiday weekend. I was the assistant manager. I had this server that showed up late every shift and with more piercings every day. She had silver on both sides of her nostrils, one in the center. Her eyebrows were pierced, cheeks, her lip, her tongue. I lost track of how much metal she had hanging out of her ears. Well, her name was Sylvia. She came to work one evening, late as usual. Out of frustration, I was out covering her portion of the floor, and it was a busy night. I barked at her. I said, Sylvia, get your out here and get to work. But first go to the bathroom and take some of that stuff out of your face. Jesus Christ, you look like you fell in a tackle box. Sylvia did not take kindly to my criticism of her self-expression, and neither did HR. The conversation was 3 weeks old. They waited until the day before the holiday to terminate me. I guess they didn't want to pay, they didn't want to pony up for my holiday pay or Christmas bonus. The managers all got small holiday bonuses. Hourly employees got nothing. I was sitting on the sofa that Steve and I found out by the curb, scrolling through Craigslist looking for jobs. I figured I'd better get this done before they shut my phone off. Then, as usual, an ad caught my eye. It read, "Rare opportunity for qualified individual. Resident on-site nightclub manager wanted for unique clientele. Above market salary, background check mandatory. No exceptions." I thought, what the hell, why not? I sent off a reply email. Within seconds, they sent me this generic form to fill out concerning the background check. Now, I have filled out my fair share of background check forms in my working career thus far, but this one was different. This form never asked for my social security number. It did not ask for my previous addresses. There was no place for me to sign to release my DMV record. The form felt like one of those worksheets used by genealogists. It asked for information on my biological parents, and their parents' parents. As I mentioned before, my mother passed away when I was 13. My father has late-stage Alzheimer's and is in a specialized residence. I remember my father's mother and my mother's father, but they're gone now too. I filled out the form as best I could with what I knew. It's not like I had anybody left to ask. It sounds it sounds so pathetic when I say it like that. The whole thing was weird, but my options were slim. They were slim as in none. This was my only option. I needed a job. If I didn't find a job soon, I would need a job and a place to live. If I didn't find a job soon, my next phone call I could step outside and yell. Due to my sudden and unexpected unemployment status, I decided to hold off on the game and opted for a shower instead. Much cheaper. I was washing my hair with a bar of soap when I heard the tablet ding with an incoming email. I got my first email from Maggie. I did not know it at the time, but Maggie would be the one who would change my life and perspective on the world I thought I knew forever. The email read, Mr. Bishop, thank you for your application and interest in my club. My attorney is working on my behalf to narrow down the search for the right candidate. I have great news for you on this front. You are one of the 6 finalists. I would like to set up a time for a formal interview. I assure you, my attorney, Mr. Vincent, is looking forward to putting this matter to rest. Hope to hear from you soon, Maggie. There was no need to consult my calendar or my day planner. I had nothing. Not only was I in between jobs, but I was also in between girlfriends. My last girlfriend, Rebecca, surprised me one evening with an engagement ring that she got from someone else, another woman. I definitely couldn't compete in that market. I replied immediately, Miss or Ms. Maggie, thank you for your prompt response. I will make myself available at your earliest convenience. I look forward to meeting you, and call me Isaac, please. Signed, Isaac. Within minutes, I got my second email from Maggie. Isaac, I have you scheduled to meet Mr. Vincent on Wednesday. It is after the Christmas holiday and before the turn of the new year. Please let me know if the date works for you or if we will need to reschedule. From this point forward, we will be in touch via cell phone. Is the number you have provided in your application the best number to reach you at? Oh, it's technically Miss Maggie, but I just go by plain old Maggie. Out of the pool of candidates we have thus far, I have a good feeling about you. Call it intuition. Maggie. I read the email, then I read it again. I can't explain why, but I felt strangely drawn to Maggie. It didn't make any sense to me either. The more I thought about it, this lady was just as likely to be 80, crippled, and crazy. I had no idea. I was shooting in the dark here, but I also didn't have a whole lot of other possible potential employers beating down my door. Maggie, the cell number listed in my application is indeed the best way to get in touch. Isaac, I am just a glass half full kind of guy, but I was feeling pretty optimistic. I had no idea about the rude awakening that was in store for me. I went to bed with a smile on my face, excited to see what Wednesday would bring. Chapter 4, The Banjo and the Lucky Rock. The next week was uneventful. I updated my dating profile, my gamer profile, as well as my resume. Neither looked too promising. Well, my gamer profile looked impressive, if I do say so myself. More than anything else, I was only killing meaningless time. I had Wednesday on the brain. This whole thing, up to this point, was intriguing. I was asleep for a few hours Tuesday night when I heard the most awful noise the human ear could possibly bring in. I thought there were more cats fighting in the alley. I could hear this little old widow, Mrs. Babish, screaming at them. Another noise hit me just then. It was the sliding patio door. I instantly flipped the covers off and grabbed my flea market 9-iron I keep beside the bed. Now, I'm not a big guy. I am 5 foot 7 inches tall, at about 100 and 140 pounds roughly. but it's a wimpy 140. There is no shame in my game. In high school, I was on the debate team and the chess club. Embarrassing, I almost failed gym class twice. I knew the librarian on a first-name basis. The only school record I ever broke was being the person who had checked out the most books in the library per semester. I cautiously sneaked into our living room, 9-iron at the ready. Steve was sitting on the ratty old sofa. He had a dish towel pressed to the side of his head. There was a large river stone on the wobbly coffee table. Of all things, there was a banjo seated next to him on the sofa. "What was all that noise?" I asked as I relaxed my golf swing. "Well, I was playing my new banjo on the patio when the crazy old bat across the courtyard threw a rock at me," Steve staggered out in marijuana-infused slurs. "You don't play the banjo," I stated. "I know. Some of the best musicians are self-taught," he stated in a voice of overconfidence. "And you thought 3 a.m. on a Wednesday was the perfect time to do that?" I guess I questioned his logic. "Where did you get this stupid banjo from anyway? Did you blow your half of the rent on that? Because if you did, I'm going to be pissed and we are going to be in trouble," I blurted out, not leaving him time to respond. "No, man, nothing like that. You see, my dude, he owed me some money. I gave him a dime back. He was like, oh, really down and out and in the dumps, right because of some stuff with his girl. You know how it is. He said he would get me back. That was like, 3 months ago. I asked him for the bread he owes me. He says he ain't got it, but he did have this really cool banjo. And I said, wow, dude, I always wanted to learn to play the banjo with my feet like that Roy Rogers dude on that show Hee Haw." Steve stammered out on his monologue. I waved my hand in front of his face, signaling him to stop. Did she hit you with that rock?" "Oh, yeah. I'm keeping it too, bro," Steve declared. "Why?" I asked I almost didn't want to know, but now I was hooked. "It's my lucky rock now, bro," Steve stated as he held up the gray baseball-sized stone for closer examination. "You're bleeding on a crappy sofa. How is that your lucky rock?" "It should have killed me," Steve said as his bloodshot eyes went all wide. I rolled my eyes. "Oh my God, I've had enough." I said, "You okay? You don't need to go to the hospital or anything?" "Nah, man. I got a head like a steel trap," Steve stated with a grin as he knocked his knuckles against his own forehead. He squinted and rubbed the spot where he had just knocked. "Oh, no more banjo tonight, okay?" I sighed. I headed back to my own room, golf club in one hand and banjo in the other. I was hoping to get a couple hours of sleep before I had to go downtown. Chapter 5, Edith and the Snappy Dresser. My Honda Civic was in a good mood this morning. I'm guessing it was the fact that I had just treated it to a brand new oil change. As a bonus, it received one of those fancy new cardboard Christmas tree air fresheners. The air freshener was the cherry on top because she fired right up this morning and got me exactly where I needed to be. I was wearing my good khaki pants and a baby blue button-up shirt, accented with the small white pinstripes. I always keep my sleeves rolled up to my elbows, especially during job interviews. It sends a subliminal message that says, I am willing to roll up my sleeves and go to work. I am me, of course, and I cannot avoid the harsh reality of that. I chose to let my footwear reflect my personality. I was wearing my favorite pair of Chuck Taylors, black all-star Converses. Now, before you start running all over town talking about what a snappy dresser I am, I must give credit where credit is due. Rebecca picked out the pants. She said it made my butt look good. I'll take that compliment for the win, please. I borrowed the shirt from Steve. It was still new, wrapped in plastic and filled with the little tiny pins when I asked him if I could borrow it. He bought it for a court date, but accepted a plea bargain for community service instead. The building was a nondescript tower downtown. The address read the Jackson Tower, Suite 319, on the third floor. I found a half-glass door that read Adrian Vincent, attorney at law. As I opened the door, a tired-looking middle-aged secretary looked up from the reception desk. I proceeded to introduce myself to Edith Monroe. Well, at least that was what was on the name placard on the corner of her desk. You must be the 1 o'clock interview. Mr. Vincent told me to watch out for you, Edith replied with what I can only guess was a well-rehearsed smile. Have a seat. She paused long enough to motion me to a couple of chairs next to a small shelf of outdated magazines. I will let Mr. Vincent know you are here. Edith clicked a button on her phone and did just that. I have read a few corny jokes in the 6-month-old edition of Reader's Digest when Edith said, Mr. Vincent will see you now. Thank you, I responded. Chapter 6, Fashionista. Mr. Vincent stood behind his desk. He had light blonde hair and wore a fresh, crisp, clean suit. I would not even be allowed in the stores that sold suits like that. I was beginning to wonder if this guy was an attorney or if he was running for public office. Mr. Vincent's office was sparsely decorated. I had a gut feeling he did not spend a lot of time here. His desk was big, but not ridiculous. There was a painting on the wall that looked as if it might have been equally at home in a hotel room. There was standard attorney office fodder, long bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes of legal books with matching spines. A long, narrow table graced the wall behind his desk. On each side of the desk on the floor were these oblong vases with feathery and cattail-looking plants protruding from them. All the decorations in his office were dry, subtle earth tones, except one. There was a pale purple vase with a crowned and raised cap sitting in the middle of the oblong table behind his desk. I remember it because it just seemed oddly out of place. I assumed it was a gift or maybe an art project from a loved one. Hello, my name is Adrian Vincent, and you must be, Mr. Vincent announced. Through bleached teeth, his haircut was worth more than my Honda. Isaac, a young brunette in a smart-looking business suit, blurted out from a corner of the room. She was short in stature and a little on the small side, total guess, but I would estimate her to be in her early 20s. She wore thin black slacks and an even shinier black open-toed high-heeled shoe. She was wearing a matching black jacket. Like my shirt, she too had the sleeves pushed up to her elbows. I was not the only one stating I was ready to roll up my sleeves and go to work. Fashionistas of a feather. Fashioned together, or something along that lines. The jacket was open, revealing a nice white blouse. It was the brand of white that is so white that it looks like it would glow in the dark. Her hair was black, wavy, and cut to shoulder length. Her complexion was only slightly paler than would be considered normal, but it was nothing alarming or anything. She had bright blue eyes, a pleasant enough smile, and the cutest dimples I think I have ever seen. She was sitting in a taller than average crushed velvet wingback chair. Her legs were crossed and her arms rested squarely on the armrest. She made no attempt to stand or shake my hand. I turned to her and gave her a cordial nod. Correct. Her eyes lit up like a 10-year-old at Disneyland. Her jaw dropped open with a wide grin. Mr. Vincent looked back at her. They exchanged some sort of non-verbal communication. That much was clear. Mr. Vincent reseated himself. He shuffled around some papers on his desk, not bothering to look up in my direction. Mr. Bishop, your grandparents were Edward and Bridget Bishop, correct? Mr. Vincent asked as he referred to a manila folder open on his desk. I furrowed my brow at this. No. As far as I know, my grandparents were David and Susan Adams on my mother's side, and Fred and Josie Bishop on my father's side. They're all gone now, though. Why do you ask? It is standard procedure, Mr. Bishop. A specific request from my client. He nodded in the direction of the girl. Maggie? That we do a full genealogical background on all future employees. Is that legal? I think there is some moral and ethical violations in that. It's state law as well, like the Generic Information Non-Discrimination Act of 2008, I commented quickly. The Lakeside High School Book Readers Award was starting to pay off. I understand your concern, Mr. Bishop. Really, I do. I assure you, the reason for such an inquiry will become abundantly clear at the proper time. Besides, you did sign the release. Mr. Vincent held up a piece of paper printed off from my online application for me to see. That was the first 6 chapters of Maggie's Wine and Spirits. If you'd like to hear more, send me an email. Drop me a message. Tell me what you think. If you are an indie author and you would like to be potentially featured on this show, reach out to us in the comments, send us an email, and we will see what we can do. Let me know what you think. Reach out to us. Give us a call. Thank you. And have a good evening. And until next time, read local.
You got it?